Knife to a dogfight. Over the South Atlantic. Cole leveled out his two aircraft formation again, having gotten them back on track for their first waypoint after that brief distraction and order to RTB. Now the world spread out below them in silence like a lovely blue marble, and the curvature of the Earth could be seen out 270 degrees of cockpit glass. Despite the roaring engine, the Earth below, stretching out to the horizons, looked peaceful. What it really was, of course, was dead. But Cole was mainly looking at the target designator for the Russian ship on his moving map display. He and Tomo were now up high enough to get their own radar signature back for the battlecruiser without need of the Predator up above them at 15,000 feet. With the enemy vessel showing up clearly, Cole had no concerns about staying out of their 200-kilometer kill radius, nor about getting it inside their own 370-kilometer circle of death. They passed into that outside border zone a few seconds ago, but he was going to give it another few seconds, just as margin for error. While he did so, he let the peace envelop him, and also let his mind range back to before the fall, before his command of the air group, even before flight school, all the way back to his childhood in the Midwest. He'd come so far, and the world had taken such crazy twists to get him to this point. He only wished more of his brothers in naval aviation were still around to see it. Not to mention my parents, and my sisters. "Arm LRASMs," he said across the air mission net. "Roger that," Tomo said, flying just behind and beside him. Cole reached a black-gloved hand down and armed his weapons. The F-35 was run almost entirely on a panoramic cockpit display, basically a huge touchscreen, which required that they wear touchscreen-compatible gloves. He wasn't sure he preferred it. Touchscreens were fiddly and hardly worked at all without looking down at them. Familiar buttons and knobs could easily be operated by touch. Oh well, the future was here, whether it sucked or not. Cole felt the plane judder slightly as the weapons bay hatches opened and the missile rails descended. To stay elusive to radar, nothing on the F-35s protruded until the second it was needed. Cole took a deep, richly oxygenated breath. "Engage target," he said. He tapped the launch button and felt the plane shudder and rise as the two big missiles went off the rails. "Balerian 2, weapons away," Tomo said in his ear. "Balerian 1, weapons away," Cole echoed, mainly for the benefit of CIC. The JFK would already be seeing the 4 missiles appear on their own radar screens. These would be in flight for less than 10 seconds. Then the CAG and his wingman would see if it was safe to fly in closer to do a battle damage assessment, BDA. Depending on what they saw, they might finish off the burning or listing warship with their Joint Strike Missiles, which had a shorter range than the LRASMs. Or hell, maybe we'll just strafe them. That made Cole smile, and his eyes crinkle up again. The Russian ship was unlikely to be much of a threat at that point. "Enemy SAM launch detected!" The tactical officer in CIC shouted this out loud enough to get picked up in the bridge. This was critical intel, and while it shouldn't be a crisis, neither was anyone expecting it. "What the hell?" Campbell thought. "Profile those launch signatures," she ordered. "We're showing missile lock," the CAG reported back to them over the air mission net. Campbell's expression darkened with growing confusion and concern. Drake stood up at this report. Half the bridge crew were standing now. He and Abrams locked eyes again. They both knew the Russians' SAMs weren't going to make it as far as their attacking aircraft. They would simply fizzle out and drop harmlessly into the sea long before they got anywhere near them. Abrams said, "What's their game?" "Desperation, maybe? Shooting just to get a shot off?" But Drake's brow wrinkled with alarm. Something wasn't right. Off in his corner, Handon felt the cresting tension in the room. Right now, most of his team was down at or near the rear dock of the carrier, ready to get the hell off it in case the ship went down. And some primal instinct had the cells of Handon's own body desperate to go join them. "Missile profile is S-400 Triumph," the open channel from CIC barked. 16 launches, 2 waves, target is Balerian." Handon watched Drake and Abrams look at each other like they had just received unexpected proctological exams while walking down the street. Handon had never seen either man's eyes so wide. Finally, Drake said, "Oh, you've got to be fucking kidding me." Abrams sounded stunned when he said, "Those never got deployed to Russian naval units. The world ended before they rolled out." What these two knew, and Handon was now intuiting, was that the S-400 was the upgraded next and last generation of the S-300 air defense system. It used 3 different missiles to cover the entire performance envelope, and one of them was the extremely long-range 40N6, which had a range of 400 kilometers, not 200. In naval surface warfare, the key to success and survival was to kill your enemy before he could even see you, never mind get to you. The max range of anti-ship missiles and the max range of anti-aircraft missiles had long been an evolutionary arms race, like cheetahs and gazelles. One would increase its range, making the other irrelevant. Then the other would increase its range more, doing the same thing right back. And this was an arms race the Russians had just won. Drake's hand snatched at his mic, what felt like a day late and many dollars short, to warn the pilots that they had basically just brought a knife to a dogfight. But Campbell beat him onto the channel. "Balerian, abort! Abort, get out of there! Go! Go!" Lieutenant Commander Cole's right hand moved in a nearly automatic reflex down to his eject handle as his missile warning receiver, MWR, barely even had time to warble up its frantic automated warning. Looking up from his instruments, he saw a glint on the horizon, which meant he had about 1 second to live. A fireball blossomed over his left shoulder, reflecting in his cockpit glass and telling him his wingman was already dead. Campbell had both her hands on the back of the radar console operator. She didn't realize her fingers were digging into his collarbone. "Balerian 2 is down," the man said, his voice emotionless, which was either professionalism or complete shock. Campbell could already see the radar contact had disappeared from his display, and everyone in CIC could see it go off the big board overhead. "Balerian 1 is down," he added a second later. The big board just sat there, devoid of signals, devoid of life. No one spoke. Hardly anyone breathed.